hear it. But, Paul speaks on this, your good friend Paul.
My boy.
He's in 1 Timothy chapter 6, and he instructs the wealthy to be rich in good deeds, generous and willing to share. And he emphasizes storing up treasures in heaven rather than on earth. So I think, Paul offers us good advice that when we have, and we remember that all that we have is what God has trusted us to do and to care for, then it does free us to be more generous with things. And that's a growing edge for me. I think because I managed money for so many years, and I had to, budget and take care of things for other people and hand it out in a way that would make it last. It also, and maybe you can even go back to my childhood. Remember the jewelry box where I would stash the money and try not to spend it? I think that all those things that we learn in life can keep us from being as generous with other people as we're called to be, and maybe even as we want to be. I certainly want to be generous.
Right.
But
I think we all do.
I would say maybe it just doesn't, it's not like a natural gifting somehow. I feel like my sister has that natural gifting. I think she would give the shirt off her back to anybody that needed it and wouldn't even ask if she's got an extra shirt,
Right.
Wouldn't know if she was going to have a shirt. And me, I'm going to question, well, will I have a shirt if I give this one away? And I'll try to think through, and will this shirt last, to get till I can get the next one.
Right.
And so I really do admire people who have figured out how to give with no strings attached, how to give because they have eyes to see the need. And I certainly have grown a lot in that, but the good news is God just keeps growing me. I've still got room to grow, and He is big enough to do that. He's big enough to help me see more and more the people that have a need in the community. And I think wherever we're living, I know people are listening from lots of different places, but wherever you live, whatever community you're in, there are people who have less. There are people who need you to live into that generosity to help them in ways, and it takes seeing them. So what are, maybe some of the things that we could do in a practical sense? Like we've talked a lot about money. We've talked a lot about things that Scripture says to do, or Wesley says to do.
What can we do?
But what can we do? And, I think first we really have to remind ourselves, I don't know if it's that sticky note on the mirror or where you get your reminders. Maybe it's a little reminder pop up on your phone in the morning, but everything you have belongs to God. Like, let's just start there.
All of it.
Everything. And hopefully, if we can finally come to understand and believe and trust in that, then it'll free us from, I think, the grip of stuff. Because sometimes we give stuff a lot of power over our lives.
Yep.
And I've been thinking about that in my own life in a different way, Chris. I don't need stuff per se, and I don't think I'm a crazy shopper like I used to be. I do have a weakness when it comes to holding on to stuff. Now, there's something there that we don't have time to unpack today,
Okay.
and I won't make you.
Do they make reality TV shows about this type of situation?
They do, and here's the thing. The more I look around, the more I think, I really do not need any of these things. And so if you've got someone, we've donated a lot of things, don't get me wrong, but there's this sentimental value I attach to stuff, right. Or the fact that I paid money. I can remember, I paid this much for right. this. And I'm really,
I paid $200 for that.
Yeah, I'm really finished with it. But then I'm thinking, well, I wish I, could recoup some of that money by selling it. But I don't want to fool with selling it, Right. I don't want to have a yard sale. And so
or deal with Facebook Marketplace.
So we hold on to stuff, and I think that's also not living into generosity.
Right.
It's also not a healthy relationship with stuff when we can't let it go and do some good somewhere else because we're worried about what we already spent.
Right.
Isn't that something? I mean, the money for that is already gone. So if somebody else could use it. So anyway, I've still got some work to do. I know when we're having this conversation, people are hearing this and going, this is just not very practical because we can't do it. But guess what? Wherever you are, just start wherever you are and think or listen to how God is asking or calling you or challenging you to step outside your comfort zone about money, whether it is saving more, whether it is cutting off a service that you never use that you pay for every single month, because it's on a subscription.
Right.
Maybe it's the stuff that you have so much stuff you don't have room to do any of the things you might want to do. You're not using it. Share it. Give it away.
We had to go through at the house on the television where you have all the apps and just get rid of a bunch of streaming channels that we got for like a couple shows that don't even exist anymore.
Right.
And just get rid of them and just unsubscribe because money adds up. And for Hulu, I don't know anything on Hulu that I watch, so we had to get rid of that.
Yeah. Well, see, that's great because guess what? You could always subscribe later if something came up, but to stop the bleeding, so to speak,
right?
That just is budget friendly. It's a wise thing to do. And so here's one other thing, Chris, we haven't really talked about, but I'm going to put it out there. One of the first things that I think people need to do is a budget. And that sounds like overwhelming for some people. You think automatically, that sounds too hard to do, but anybody can do it. All you have to do is have a piece of paper, a pencil.
Right. I have difficulty with a budget.
And so if you'll just put down what you gained, like what's coming into the household, right? You know what that paycheck looks like, what that income looks like. You just write that at the top of the paper. Then you take out anything that's going to come out for your savings. And sometimes, Chris, for you, it's already happened before you get that bottom line number. But so you take that number, whatever you make, you take off then from that number whatever you save, and then whatever you're going to give, and you pay your bills, right? You take off the amounts of things that you have to pay, rent, utilities, any services that you pay for, your phone. So those things you need to have that visual picture. I think that makes a big difference.
How do you feel about auto pay?
Oh, auto pay is fine.
I feel like it gets you out of a routine of taking care of your own business, and next thing you know, I don't like auto pay.
Well, I think what you're saying, I do understand what you're saying.
Because you start depending on that, then something will happen, and it makes you less responsible.
Well,
you get spoiled to it.
I think the spoiled factor can make an impact on the budgeting process. Like if you're not following up on what's going out each month,
right?
Because for example, the utility bill is set up in my household on auto pay. So it just comes out automatically every month. I don't think about that. It's just going to come out because I have to pay my utilities in theory.
Auto pay has put me in overdraft a couple times.
But that is when you have to know your limits on the fact that if it's going to be a close budget item, if it's going to put you close on your budget, it's too expensive to do on autopay.
Right.
And so autopay is a free service, but what I mean when I say it's too expensive is what you mentioned, a $30 overdraft fee or whatever they are nowadays.
$25 a day.
Yeah. Is too expensive. So for some people, they need to have that the budget to be updated like on an ongoing basis. And that is important to know what that looks like for you. And if you'll just be realistic about it, like you're realistic about it, Chris, you say, hey, I need to know the dollar figure before it comes out.
Right.
And you get that warning and that heads up. Whereas, for example, I have auto pay on something, but they will send me a thing that says, we're going to draft this out of your account. So I know what that's going to look like and I know when it's going to get drafted. But if there are services, I think that's different for everybody. But truthfully, if it's costing you an overdraft fee, it is not a free service,
right.
And it is. There's a different way that you can do it.
Right. Be more responsible on my part.
Well, I don't know about that, Chris. I've been in banking long enough. I was there for 24 years. I can just tell you sometimes timing is a real issue, and for you to have control over when the date of that payment,
right?
That
a lot
of
the times
difference.
It's just me forgetting,
Mm-hmm.
that this is coming out, my phone bill's coming out, and you've heard of DraftKings, right? At one point, I was the overdraft king, and just every week I was in overdraft. Like, why is this happening? And I was making good money, and it should not be happening. I was just not paying attention and being irresponsible.
Yeah. Well, I do think if that's something that anybody else is struggling with, I think if you'll have that budget, that paper that just says this is what's coming in this month and this is what's going out, then you'll be able to work also. I would do mine sort of like according to the timeline of when I would get paid and what was due in between paydays.
Right.
So I would know what was coming out in between paydays because it is expensive if you get into overdraft, and that is that's your money instead of the bank's if you can get your timing right.
Right.
And that is something in your control, and that's something in other people's control, and sometimes it just doesn't come naturally to us. We've all got different gifts. And so, like I was talking about generosity, like that doesn't come natural. Like God's working on that in my life. And so sometimes just working with somebody or asking somebody to help. We are terrible, Chris, at saying, hey, show me how to do this because this is not something that I was born knowing.
Right.
And we all have things like that. Every human has something that we could use another person's help with, but we'd rather struggle than reach out for help.
Well, with me, it's I spent most of my adult life paying bills over the telephone or in person, living week to week. Mm-hmm. So overdraft never happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and now I'm able to pay online and all this other stuff, and sometimes it happens.
Things move so much faster now. They really do.
Crazy fast.
Everything's moving so fast. A budget. And, Chris, one of the things I said that I would try to do, maybe if we have interest, is to do a 7-week study or time together on how to do budgeting and how to do, savings and go through this. It's kind of from this Wesleyan perspective that we've already gone through in the use of money. So we've already kind of talked about the big picture, but it's a 7-week study that would hopefully help people to feel a little more confident in some of the money know-how that maybe they weren't born knowing, or maybe they have more resources than they used to have and they would like to manage them better. And so I would, be happy to do that here at Trinity and to have that available. maybe we could do that this fall. I would love to do that this
Okay.
fall and offer 7 weeks. So if we can